Strip clubs in San Diego County can be open. Escape rooms in LA can be open. Dining still out. And the Russians really did hack us this time. Plus, I'm taking on a user's challenge. It's tonight on Rob Nelson Live right now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Friday night live stream show. Interactive streaming, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, everywhere. And you guys interacting. I love the interaction. So get it out there. Get your fingers ready and start, replying. Because tonight I am actually taking on one of our viewers' challenges. I won't say who it is. That person knows who they are. But I'm taking on a challenge. I got a whole lot of DM stuff in the inbox from this person, and I can say it's a he, and I am gonna take it on. We are gonna answer the ultimate question, the big question about censorship, and this is gonna be for the left and the right, and I'm gonna have fun. I am going into this one hard. Before we hit that, I want to first bring up something else. We got strip clubs on deck, and we got Russian hacking on deck. So both are real. Strip clubs are open. San Diego County, a judge rules. He says, strip clubs can be, thanks, monkey arms. Strip clubs can be open. But, this all happened in the last 24 hours, 48 hours. Strip clubs can be open. To which restaurants are like, wait a minute. You're saying strippers can strip? That was why we had the little logo we did, right? It's like you get mask covered sanitizer. They had sanitizer wrestling, instead of like lotion or, mud wrestling. It's like they did it in sanitizer. Hot, right? Watch them wrestle naked in sanitizer. Woo! I mean, that's what COVID's done to us. Seriously? Like, I want to watch you wrestle naked in hand sanitizer. I mean, it sounds like some twisted fetish, but it's actually true. It's what clubs are doing. Plus, they give you like distancing lap dancing. So it's like lap dancing remote, like I guess they're across the room. But the judge was like, they can be open if they serve food, and they do. So the restaurants are like, well, wait, if they can be open and they serve food, why can't we be open since we serve food too? We just don't, you got to go naked? Okay, we'll have, all staff is naked. Now we're allowed to be open. That's how crazy it's gotten. And escape rooms in LA are open. You know what an escape room is? It's a thing where you go in, you lock yourself in a room, and they lock you in with a group of people, and you get clues. You have to work together to get clues to get out. So you interactively, go back and forth and dig things up and move around and talk to each other and get in close and run around in a tiny little room. That's okay to do. COVID does not like escape rooms. No, I'm serious. If you've ever been in an escape room, it's like being in a prison cell, and even if you have the mask on, you're running around like grabbing each other, hitting each other, moving stuff around, handing it back and forth, pushing, shoving, because you've got time to get out of the room. You are locked in an airtight little room. That's allowed. Outdoor dining, not. Guys, my point is, at some level, no matter where you are in the politics of this, you got to acknowledge. And again, I wish everyone could just put their left-right politics aside for a night. Let's just think about this as people. Because again, I believe if the roles were reversed, if a Democrat had been president for the last 4 years and done much the same things, not the same way, and not said things Trump says, not said some of the stupid, dumb, obnoxious things Trump says, but had done the same basic policies, I think we'd have a totally different perspective. I think a lot of people on the left sort of fight anything Trump said. And by the way, FYI, I digress, but remember when Trump said we'd have a vaccine by the end of the year, and everybody came out and they were like, medical experts say that's impossible. It can't happen. It's impossible. It's Trump spewing fake news. And I remember one was, I think it was NBC or something. They were like, it would be a miracle if it happened. So now is Trump a miracle worker because it happened before the end of the year? But, the point is, if Trump said it, you got to go against it. So unfortunately, Trump was all about like, keep the economy open at all costs. Okay, we can have a fair debate about whether or not about whether or not lockdowns don't work. But at a certain point, you got to look at the logic of like, if you want to lock down, why are you letting people go to escape rooms? I mean, you're literally locking people in a box with each other and having to have them interact in tight quarters, pushing, shoving, handing pieces of paper and things around and rushing against the clock to get out because you get stuck in the escape room. But that's not a COVID spreader. I mean, it's absurd, but outdoor dining, which has a 3.8 transmission rate, not making that up. You can look the numbers up, not a high transmission rate. Outdoors, you're dining, you're with people you most likely know in a group, wearing masks, at least, around your neck, except if you're Gavin Newsom and then you go to the expensive French Laundry restaurant, which, by the way, got $2.5 million in PPP loan. Can you believe that? The French Laundry, the upscale restaurant in Napa Valley that Gavin Newsom went to, got $2.5 million in loans. I'm so sick of all the giveaways that have gone to big companies, to businesses that technically were small businesses because they qualified and they get huge amounts. That pisses me off when you got average mom and pop shops dropping left and right, and you give these expensive, the French Laundry is just one of many, I mean, all these companies that got these big loans. And by the way, I'm not alone here. Dr. Fauci, the sort of the gospel, the archbishop of COVID, said the other day, shutting restaurants down may be necessary, but you can't do it. You can't do it if you don't give them money. He's right out there. He said, you can't just shut them down. You can't just shut them down and expect them to somehow survive. Like, you got to give them something to compensate for the fact that you're destroying them. Duh. I mean, we've been saying that for months. Like, you shut everybody down and don't give them the resources to be shut down. I'm not saying you should shut all the restaurants down, but if you're shutting them down, you're not going to give them any money. I mean, even Fauci, again, Archbishop Fauci is out there saying, give them money if you close them. Otherwise, you can't. You can't just destroy people's livelihood. And he's the guy who is most out there on we got to do what it takes, sacrifice for the good of counter COVID. And he's saying you got to give him something. But no, most officials aren't giving him anything because that's not what their focus is. But shut them down, except not escape rooms and not strip clubs. So the judge in San Diego County says strip clubs can be open serving food. It's just stupid. It's just stupid who's making up what can and can't be open. And then the restaurants said, well, wait a minute. If they can be open, can't we be open? So the judge said, yeah, you should be able to be open too. So now nobody knows. San Diego County officials are like, well, do we challenge this in court? Probably they will. So the restaurants are like, do we, don't we? Do we, don't we? We already were investing for the holidays to try to pull ourselves through. We have to make purchases. We have to spend money. Sometimes I think people in government don't get that. Since you have an endless bankroll that's funded by us, the taxpayers, and you go into debt and debt all you want, and you just keep going into debt, maybe you don't realize, Newsom and company, that businesses make expenditures, spend money to stay open. If you're a restaurant and the holiday season's coming up and you've been told you think you got a shot to stay open, you have to buy things. You have to have staff. You have to buy inventory. You have to have food. And if suddenly you're shut down, now that you don't buy it the day before. But why are some workers essential and some not essential? That's the question I have for you guys. We've gotten stuck in this notion of who's an essential worker. I like what Mike Rowe said. Aren't all workers essential? Isn't everybody essential to somebody? I mean, that's the big notion. Essential workers are grocery store workers or truck drivers. Essential workers are anybody who brings us our food. It's like food was the last stop. Food was the last stop for people. It's like, you took my food away. In LA, people were fine until they cut down outdoor dining. No, I got to be able to go out to dinner. Is that a coastal thing? In Wisconsin, they're not so much going out. Is a deal worth it to absolve companies of safety liability in exchange for small businesses and income support? I mean, look, I think at some level, we got to give them income support, and we haven't, and we've been very selective. I get that production companies, for example, have gone to great lengths to have, to essentially really protect their sets. And yet my argument's been, well, let other people do the same. Lots of restaurants went to great lengths and create extensive social distancing practices, even for carryout, and certainly could do it for outdoor dining. But I'm not, again, no matter what anybody tells me, and I'm not saying movie sets and TV sets haven't gone to, we'll talk about Mission Impossible in a second and Tom Cruise. But the reality is, the reason why movie production sets and TV and media production sets got a pass in LA is because of the power that industry has. Don't even for a second pretend that doesn't factor in. Come on, everybody out there, left, right, center, you all know how politics works. In Southern California, in the Los Angeles County, the entertainment industry, while it may be dwindling and dying in many ways and people fleeing it for places that are better tax bases, it's got incredible power. They shut whole streets down. They shut streets down for days. You can't park. Like there's no parking in Hollywood, but 3 whole blocks are gone for days because they pay to have the streets blocked for their sets. I mean, they have enormous political and economic power. So when they say, we'll do our best, let us stay open, Mayor Garcetti's like, yes, absolutely. And do it and be safe. But other businesses could do the same thing. They just don't have the same clout. They could. I mean, if enough businesses said, if enough restaurants said, we are staying open, we will follow whatever protocols you want, but we are staying open. Let us stay open. Wouldn't that be enough for you guys? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't be enough, and again, the hypocrisy, once again, who was it? The governor of, I can't even remember what state it is now. Was it New Jersey? The governor of New Jersey? No, somebody will help me out. Who just got caught going out to dinner. Tyler Boyd, power plays a big role for sure, but to be fair, Hollywood's built. I'm not disagreeing, Tyler. Hollywood was built around the film industry. Absolutely. But they get it. My point is there's no consistency. They get a pass. And the escape rooms get a pass. And strip clubs get a pass. But restaurants don't get a pass. Mom and pop shops don't, but Target does. Big box stores are safe. No, they're not. Have you been in one? I have. I was in one the other day. They're not safe. There are tons of people everywhere. Touching, moving thing. Yeah, you got your mask on. Masks aren't hazmat suits. They may slow the spread. They don't stop the spread. You're not like if you got a mask on, you can't get COVID. I mean, you certainly can. The air coming in all over. It may slow it down. You may not get somebody spit right in your face, but it doesn't mean you don't get COVID. So let the small stores stay open. It's not like you go into Target, you do anything special. They don't do like any temperature checks or anything. They just look at you and you walk in and do your thing. Do the same thing in a small store. There's not hand sanitizer in every aisle. The gym in Florida, like there's hand sanitizer every 7 feet and you have to stay socially distanced apart. You don't have to stay socially distanced apart in the Target. You can walk right up next to a person and look at the thing they're looking at. And the grocery store. Now you might choose to, but you don't have to. So again, I'm talking about leave politics out of it, the absolute chaos in which they've tried to do this. And people don't know. And one county does one thing and another county does another. It's kind of like saying you can pee in one end of the pool only. Only pee in the shallow end, folks. Like it's going to run over and people move between them. Now, someone might go, that's why you should lock everything down. But even Fauci, you can't lock everything down if you don't give people money. Don't say, well, the Republicans won't or the Democrats won't. Neither party has stepped up to the plate. Neither party, no leadership. Joe Biden from the basement. Okay, he gets a shot. He's out of the basement now. Well, at least out of the basement in Delaware. He's got a shot. What's he going to do? He's going to be president in a month and a half. He's a president-elect right now. I'm sorry, Trumpers, I told you this battle was over. And Trump's not declaring the Insurrection Act. He is probably going to announce that he's running for 2024. And he'll probably do it the day Biden gets inaugurated. Probably like, I'm running in 2024. Don't be surprised. That'd be kind of interesting, right? I mean, I don't know. It's a great question, Cruzen. Is giving people money the requirement for a deal to give people money is to shield companies from liability? I mean, I don't know. I don't actually have a quick answer on that one. I'm not going to lie. I think, I get why, look, we always shield companies, right? We've done it forever. We shield big entities. We shield governments. We shield, we shield police officers. We shield companies. Companies shield themselves. They have enormous power. and they pull a lot of strings. I don't have a quick answer. Love to see your thought if you think it's worth it. But either way, they've got to get money is my point. You can't shut them down and not give them anything. And that's what we're doing right now in a chaotic way. Again, not to beat the drum, but escape rooms. I don't even want to be in an escape room. I'm going to lots of places, doing lots of things, making this show. I don't want to go in an escape room with a bunch of people, 5, 6 people jammed up. Those things are like 8 feet by 8 feet. It's like you're in a box. Don't put me in an escape room. Oh, that's okay. Outdoor dining, however, is bad. It's just the absurdity of it, I guess. That's what really hits my button, the utter absurdity of it. Okay. Keep comments on that. I'm going to shift gears just for a minute here. And by the way, we'll see what happens in San Diego County, right? We'll see. And we'll see what happens in LA County too. We'll see how many restaurants start just opening on their own. And are they going to allow them to do the outdoor dining? Are they going to give in? It kind of goes back and forth. I mean, so many of these small businesses are just done. They're not coming back. And guys, that's what pisses me off. You can think, some of you think I'm right. I'm not really. I'm probably center, whatever that is, center left, center right. I even hate the thought of being in that. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a leftist or a liberal. I'm neither one. I don't like either hat. But at a certain level, I'm a populist. And anybody who knows me well knows, I've been a person who argued we should have, I'm not against a cap on income. That sounds pretty socialist. I'm certainly not against taking tons of money from people after they make a certain amount. I'm not talking 100,000. When you make so much money, just give some, take it back, spread it out. But put it better. I think certain amount of income distribution, wealth distribution is necessary to reset things. That is certainly not conservative. And anyone conservative out there is going to be like, you're a socialist now, Rob. I'm not a socialist either. I'm a bit of a libertarian, which again, that would not be true if I'm saying let's, take people's wealth. But a libertarian with, a libertarian with some social conscience that comes into it. And I think we can socially engineer certain things. But I'm a hands-off person. Keep your hands out of people's money. Keep your hands out of people's personal decisions. Keep your hands out of people's bodies. That's why I'm pro-choice, not pro-abortion. I'm not a fan of it, but it's your body, your choice, at least up to a certain point. Same with any medical decisions you make. Same with vaccinations. Same with euthanasia. If you want to kill yourself in a safe way, you should be able to. It's crazy. Suicide is one of the only things that's a crime to try it because you can't really be punished once you do it. It's too late. Trust me, I'm not mocking it. My brother died by suicide. So, but maybe that's my way of dealing with it. But no, it's, at the end of the day, it hurt to see my brother do that. It broke my heart. It still does. People are like, you mad at him? I'm like, no, it hurts. I feel bad. He was in such a bad place. And I didn't know he was in that bad a place. He was in a tough place. But at the end of the day, I'd still say it was his choice. I would have wanted to talk him out of it. But I wouldn't want to lock him up and say, you can't. If at the end of the day, you want to not be here, your choice. I'm a libertarian in that sense. And that's why I fight for the idea of people being able to live outside of the box. Let's protect the most vulnerable, for Christ's sake. Seriously, how come that argument wins nothing with so many people? I mean, is it possible that trying to protect the healthy population from itself is maybe less smart than trying to protect the vulnerable population? Literally, isolate vulnerable populations. Isolate and protect people who are most vulnerable. And let the healthiest go out and live and function. And then we get, a vaccine and some herd immunity. And fear, man. Fear is killing us on this. And don't pretend fear is meaningless, because fear matters. Fear affects things. Fear is not just a thing. You can, I'm not being hippy dippy, but people, you can be scared enough. You can give yourself cancer. I believe that. I mean, the body and the mind are connected. We know that now. It's not like, I'm not being all mystical. The mind has a lot of influence over the body. Any medical professional can tell you that. Like, people overcome things they shouldn't overcome. Mind matters. So fear matters. Fear affects us. I'm on a little rant. I'm being judged for wanting to cap income. But you know what? I'll take it. Again, there's a part of me that looks and goes, if you're worth $40 billion, I know you earned it, but you didn't just earn it on your own. And yes, there's a whole system that helped you to earn it. And there's all kinds of pieces in place that help you. And, at a certain point, can I look and go, when, we are only as good as the weakest in our society. So if we've got an undercut, if we've got a huge part of our population suffering, broken, do we not all have an obligation to fix that? I think we do. And if part of fixing that is we're going to take from those who have the most to help fix it, people go, well, they won't earn money. Sure, they will. They'll keep earning money. People who want to earn money will keep earning it. And after a certain amount, you got enough, you're going to be fine in generations and generations and generations. Sidebar note, though, how did the Vanderbilts lose all their money? The richest family in the world in 2 generations lost everything. I mean, there's like barely any money left. Seriously. There's a fortune worth billions, like 200 billion in today's economy. And in 2 generations, they lost it all, competing to build bigger houses. I'm really digressing today. They've tried to protect them, and we've lost 300K monkey arms. You know what? I disagree with you, monkey arms. They didn't try to protect them. That's my point. We locked the entire healthy population down. And what we discovered is the disease spread often in lockdown places. So we didn't go, we will find a way to take care of those who are most vulnerable. And the way isn't we're going to keep everybody from interacting. The way is we're going to keep you from interacting with everybody. We've done it haphazard. We've done completely haphazard. I keep saying lockdowns don't work. Let me qualify that. Lockdowns work if you truly, truly could lock down a society. But when you let everybody go to the store and to Target and to buy groceries, and you got people delivering those groceries and growing those crops and packaging, you got all the human interaction to do the things that people then live off of. You're not locked down. You're just making up that that's essential. Going to escape rooms are essential, as is going to a pot dispensary, as is going to a smoke shop, as is going to a grocery store, as is going to Kmart. Don't buy it. Don't buy it. So, shifting gears quickly. I want to get to my no. It's not back to science. See, I hate that. This whole notion that science is one thing, man. You sound like you're being like the old days in the Inquisition. We're going to get to that. It's heresy if you don't say this. It's what the Bible said. Science is not, there are multiple views of the science of this, and time will show us more. And there is lots of science that a lot of what they've done hasn't worked. There's a lot of evidence that strategies they used didn't work. That doesn't mean and other strategies could work. So when someone says the science, it's like if you don't agree exactly with my interpretation of the facts, there's lots of facts. There's lots of competing arguments. The only part you could argue is not debatable is someone says COVID isn't real. Okay, well and I'll give you the right to say it. I'm not going to censor you, but no, it's real. But the science, the data, there's a lot. And again, it's like in a courtroom, Here's an interesting thought, you guys. And this is kind of shifting gears. I want to it's true. Like the beauty of the country is you can make anything of yourself. Absolutely. I mean, you can, but the reality is you can't if you don't, people say pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's great. What if you don't have bootstraps? Seriously. What if you don't have bootstraps? If you go look at some of the underserved, impoverished communities, some people will pull out of them. But the odds for most are just, you can't. You have no resources to pull out with. You've got horrible schools. You've got underfunded, horrible hospitals. Your healthcare is bad. Nutrition's bad. Family structures are broken. Violence is everywhere. There's no economic growth or opportunity in those communities because businesses don't want to take a risk and invest. That's a hard thing to pull yourself out of. Some will. Most won't. Should we not take care of the most? Just something to think about. And yes, the strippers wear masks. All right. So let me shift gears real quick. We're going to hit the Russian hacking thing just because it's crazy. The Russians really did hack us this time. And it's bad. I mean, it's bad. They hacked SolarWinds. And SolarWinds is this big, Crafty can come on later and explain it. It's this big tech company.
IT company.
Yeah, it's a big IT company. They provide this big infrastructure that seeps through your whole system. But the scary thing is SolarWinds provides core IT infrastructure to almost all the Fortune 500 companies and to numerous agencies of the federal government, including the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State, the Department of Treasury, the Department of Justice. And they got massively hacked. We're not talking like jump in, pull some data, jump out. We're talking like a stealth cyber attack, seeded in, placed in. They think it went on for any period of time starting, basically 9 months ago, and seeped in, webbed into the infrastructure. And what they think it was a giant espionage operation. And we're trying to collapse anything. They were trying to basically quietly, surreptitiously get data on all kinds of stuff. And the truth is they don't know how much stuff they got data on. Did they get data? Did they get intelligence data? Did they get military infrastructure data? Did they get technology data? Did they get, nobody knows. They only know they breached the Department of Defense. They breached the National Security Agency. They breached the Department of State. They may have breached Treasury and Commerce, and they breached numerous Fortune 500 companies. Scary, scary. I told you guys the other day, I had dinner with an admiral about a month ago, and he's an active admiral in the U.S. Navy, and he said the future of all military is cyber. That's what our focus is, on the cyber. That is the new battleground of the future. Monkey arms, less human. You know what? You're right, but this is my point. Yes, reduce infection. It's not science, it's math. So let me do another math equation. If you have an infectious disease that we closed the country down when we had 3,000 cases, it's all there were when we started the massive shutdowns, when California shut down, a highly transmissible disease, which it is. The only way you could ultimately stop having outbreaks is never let people back out, because you will always have 3,000 people somewhere who have it and know they have it, who have it and don't know they have it. Half the people who have it don't show symptoms, so you wouldn't know if they had it, who are contagious but haven't shown up yet. You're always going to have, at least, and at this point, months ago, with 3,000 was nothing. Once it spread out, but at 3,000, we shut down. So the reality was going to be we could shut down for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. The minute you open back up, you're letting an entirely buffeted population come back out and be exposed. And somewhere those 3,000 cases spread around, but now it's really more than that. But let's just say it was the 3. We'll start the infection all over again. It was inevitable. The minute you unlocked, you were going to have massive spikes in the numbers. The minute you did it, and even during lockdowns, because California is locked down, guys. It's locked down. Come visit if you don't believe me. But it's not locked down in that people still go to the grocery store, go to Target, go to the escape room, go to the strip clubs. No, but I'm joking about those two things. But people do what's called essential activities, and people have to provide those essential activities. And the workers, you're not locked down, but yet you're locked down for the most part, and it still spreads. So unless you could totally lock down, and even then, the minute you let people out, the disease is still there. It will start spreading again. It's why they kept saying we need a vaccine and ultimately herd immunity. But it's a balance, guys. It's a balance. There's two sides, math and science. There's two sides to all of it. There's two sides to a virus and a cure. And we keep, it's like you can't acknowledge that it's like, no, you have to accept the cure. No, you don't. You can argue the cure is going to do more damage than the virus. It's a fair argument. You can say I'm wrong, but wait till you see a year or two from now how many lives have been completely ruined. How many people died from that? How many lives will never come back? Are you 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, 40? How much of your life do you have left? If I said your life is effed, you are not getting it back. Your pieces are going to get so broken, it'll take you decades to rebuild. Would you go, that's fair? If that happens to millions of people, if you're one of those millions, or would you go, wait a minute, let me take my chances with COVID, but let's do COVID control in a smart way. That's all I'm saying. Okay. The hack thing is sad, scary. And it's the only time, it's the 5th time the cybersecurity, what is it? CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency issued. It's the 5th time it's issued an imminent threat warning. Only 5 times. This hack is real. We're going to find out more, and we may not know for a long time. So yes, I don't think Trump colluded with the Russians, but yes, the Russians are out there hacking us, as are the Chinese, both out there mining away, trying to get inside our infrastructure brains, our technology brains. All right, let me move on, guys. And I hope I'm getting a lot of your comments, because I said I had a listener, and I want to take on the challenge from this listener. So here we go. So here's the deal. The argument he makes about my censorship stuff is that, should we just allow people to go out on Facebook, Twitter, and just say whatever they want and let the population draw their own conclusions with no regulation or censorship? My first foremost answer is yes. Yes, we should. We should let the people make their own choices. The assumption that you're not smart enough to decide what's true or false doesn't hold water with me. To which gave me some examples. What if you publish fake? I'm reading some of this. I'm not going to post it on the screen, but what if you publish fake or incorrect evacuation on a natural disaster? What if you say the water supply is contaminated and will cause cancer upon contact? What if you say the U.S. is at war and it's legal to defend yourself without provocation? Okay. What if you publish that the stock market's crashed and lost all its value and banks are out of cash, so you should go withdraw your savings? All examples which are a version, a sort of a more, a less physical version of yelling fire in a crowded theater. And the Supreme Court ruled a long time ago, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. My response to that, and there's more examples of it, but my response to that is, and there's a second piece to this from the viewer. And by the way, I really appreciate you getting in the dialogue with me, but I wanted to take it on because I really want to address it, because I do not think those are examples that are the same as what I'm talking about. On the one hand, on the face value of it, I would say, yes, you should let people publish whatever they want and let people decide if it's true. But you argue, well, you're going to publish that there's, the banks have run out of money. And at what point do you decide you can't do that? But it's a very fine line when you decide telling people what they can or can't say. And when it comes to the stuff I'm talking about, it's less concrete than yelling fire in a crowded theater. And that's my problem. They are moving the line over to where it's saying to suggest that lockdowns don't work, or to suggest certain things about COVID or whatever it would be, to challenge vaccines, which Twitter has said it will do, because we want you to all do something, is the same as yelling fire in a crowded theater. And it's not. It's not the same thing. And at a certain point, people need to be able to have a balance. I was starting to say this before. When you look at courts, because the whole idea in America was the courts. We go to court. You go to court. When you go to court, the whole way it was set up was that the judge rules on matters of law. What's legal? What's allowed? What do the rules say? But juries are the deciders of fact. Why are juries, a jury of your peers, a decider of fact? Because they recognized long ago that two people can come in with two very different sets of facts. And it's up to your peers, the populace, the people, to decide what they think is true or not true. The judge in a jury trial doesn't make those decisions. The judge doesn't go, I don't believe you. I don't believe you weren't there on Tuesday. That's for the jury to decide. He wasn't there on Tuesday. He was there on Tuesday. Or he was there on Tuesday, but not doing what you think. The jury, the people, get to decide which facts they think are true. The judge merely operates matters of law. I think it's the same thing. The jury is us, and we should get to decide what we think is true. It shouldn't be up to any institution to decide for us. But here's my thing. I want to give you some examples because this is where it's gotten scary to me, okay? This has always been a thing for me, that I think the left, you guys were always the ones who fought against censorship and control. And the right in the history has often censored. So let's look at Vietnam. And I'll give you a handful. McCarthyism. McCarthyism and the blacklists were all about if you were affiliated with a communist party, We were going to silence you and censor you and ban you because communism could destroy America. The threat of what it could do needed to be censored. You couldn't say or do certain things, Eugene Debs, famously, went to prison for saying that World War I was a war being fought by the U.S. simply to gain riches and power. You weren't allowed to say that. It was a threat. Weed. If you're old enough to remember, back in the 60s, it may have been the late 50s even, and the 60s and the first part of the 70s, there's a whole campaign that weed made people killers. Smoking marijuana would make you dangerous, destructive, violent. You'd kill people, and it had to be blocked. You couldn't do it. Masturbation back in the day was considered mentally dangerous. That's where cornflakes came from. It was supposed to stop masturbation. I'm not making that up. Being gay. Like heretical things, right? And people who were heretical were often silenced. And I'm talking about in positions of power even. General Patton in the military, General Patton and General Mitchell of the Air Force, General Patton of the Army, both were famously censored and pushed out of their positions in the military for challenging conventional military wisdom. Yet Billy Mitchell was right. A town I'm from, Milwaukee, they named the airport after him, General Mitchell Field. He was right. He saw that the Air Force was the modern future, not infantry. But they didn't want to hear that. Patton, same way. These guys had ideas that didn't fit the conventional structure. Thomas Paine, the Patriot. When Thomas Paine went against the country, the U.S., the founders, Washington and Adams and Jefferson and all those guys, when he said, no, remember the principles we all agreed to? You're violating them. They booted him out. Went to France, said, wait, you guys are doing the same thing. Booted him out. He died a pauper because he spoke truth. And my point is, we've always had people who were willing to share ideas that weren't popular, and they've been censored. But that's not a good thing. It is different when a news source, and it's not. Yes, as a private citizen, but private citizens are being blocked from sharing things. And Tyler, we use the example of Hunter Biden and the story. And yes, you said Hunter Biden doesn't, the New York Post was allowed to publish the Hunter Biden story. They won't stop them yet, by the way. But the more powerful means of information we have is how people get content. And most people don't read the New York Post, but many people will read something on Twitter or repost it. So if you block their access to share that story, you are effectively censoring it. And you are a private citizen reposting a story, you can't do it. You can't repost the New York Post story. So they are blocking private citizens. And when you say a news source, but again, news sources I'm sorry. CNN's misreported so many things. They've made stuff up. They stuck to the Russian collusion stuff, the stuff with Kevin. A list of things they got wrong. And they never come out and say, I'm sorry, we were wrong. They just switch gears. So, and I'm not saying the right doesn't misreport things too. I'm just saying, news sources will misreport things, and it shouldn't be up to a larger censor board to decide you have to be stopped from saying it. Here's a couple little examples. Yeah, I totally remember. I talked about it the other day, the Nazis marching through. It was an ACLU lawyer who was Jewish who said they should, but that wouldn't have happened today is my point. That's what scares me. I do think the left was always a fan of the bigger force in the U.S. of fighting censorship, but it shifted. And I want to give a couple examples. McCarthyism was an example of the right censoring. The Kennedy assassination, same thing, discrediting people who thought there was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, which is, again, you're allowed to have that view, but they really tried hard to censor it, block it. I think people were probably killed in the process, and that's not wacky conspiracy. You can say it is. It's now most people think there was more than one person, but the links they went to perpetuate the notion. And if any of you watched my show a month or so ago, I told you I had a great conversation both with one of Bobby Kennedy's kids who said the whole Kennedy family knows it was a conspiracy, but it's like, what's the point? And two, with the guy who was the clerk to Chief Justice Warren and the Warren Commission, which was what said there was one person acting alone. And he was a law professor at the time. And he told me in private, he's like, he didn't say they were right. He said, we did what we had to do to keep the country calm. I don't like that. 9/11 conspiracy. Maybe there was a conspiracy in 9/11. But shouldn't you be allowed to say it? Shouldn't you be allowed to challenge it? If people on the left who wanted to say, hey, 9/11 was a conspiracy, George Bush and company and corporate tycoons did this intentionally, should you have been censored from saying this? So that would be my question. Should you have been able to say 9/11 was a conspiracy? It was not Middle Eastern terrorists hijacking planes and blowing up buildings. It was orchestrated and allowed by the United States government. Same way many people argue the United States government may have been behind allowing Kennedy to be assassinated in collusion with the mob. Should you be allowed to say those things? Yes, you should be allowed to say them. Reddit 343 Politics. Yes, I agree with you. News sources are more political, and when they become biased, they're no longer real news. But either way, and I agree, and both sides can do that. Although, again, I've said before, I really believe, opinion people aside, the Tucker Carlsons, the Sean Hannitys, Fox News, if you watch during the day, is more balanced than CNN or MSNBC. Just watch it. And Shepard Smith, who was there for years, was a young lefty, and he was always balanced, gay, great guy, by the way. Knew Shepard back in the day. Remember, I had my show on Fox News. Shepard was like, he was just getting started. He's like, man, I want a show like you. Then he became like their main daytime anchor. Megalomaniac. Hope that's, you're not saying I am. Trump, a megalomaniac. Absolutely. Excuse me. So shouldn't you be allowed to say, what if after the Iraq war, when they said there were no weapons of mass destruction, there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? What if people who came out and said there weren't weapons of mass destruction were censored because the government wanted to say there were? Now, fortunately, in this case, they came out and ultimately admitted they were wrong. But what if they just wanted to stop you from doing it? What if they wanted to stop you from saying 9/11 was a conspiracy? I don't think it was, although I do think the one airliner, when you think about it, was shot down, right? That one airliner just crashed in the field and pieces everywhere. How did it blow up in the sky? I mean, think about it. I think they sent U.S. fighter jets up and shot it down because it was going to crash into the Capitol. And they didn't want it to crash into the Capitol. And they're like, shoot it down fast. They're all going to die anyway. Shoot it down. Don't tell anyone. Should I be censored for saying that? I might be right. I might be wrong. I should have the right to say it. And people on the left, you should want the right to say things that the conventional wisdom of those in power doesn't want said. We should all want that right. Revisionist history is what can save us if we didn't allow people to. I mean, there's no absolute set of facts. Look at how long we were fed all kinds of stories about America and all this stuff. Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffin, all that stuff. I go dig into that stuff, man. Manifest Destiny, all kinds of stuff you were told to believe about our country, about how we got where we were. And then people like Howard Zinn, and the People's History of the United States, which is a revisionist history, genius revisionist history, sort of turns it all on its head. Should Howard Zinn not have been allowed to have his revisionist history? Again, back in the day, Howard Zinn's revisionist history, which was a leftist history, was pushed back on from the right. Nixon would have wanted to censor all you guys on the left, and they tried. Pentagon Papers. Pentagon Papers was the documents that came out which showed that the U.S. government was lying. Lyndon Johnson was lying about Vietnam and what we were doing there and why we needed to be there. And they argued you can't say that because it'll threat to national security, just like they did with Edward Snowden. I'll get to that point in a second, 343 Politics. And yet Edward Snowden and the Pentagon Papers, the Supreme Court ruled no. And the reality was the Pentagon Papers weren't really revealing anything at that point that would have changed what had already happened. But they tried to censor it, saying you can't say that stuff because it's a threat to national security. That's a version of what they're doing now, guys. They're just saying it's a threat to public safety. National security, public safety, the well-being of everyone. You can't say things because of that. And that's, no, Tyler, that's my point. And this is where we disagree. Technically, I am allowed to say them right now. No one's putting me in jail for it yet. But we are using a sophisticated, go back to the cyber war stuff, right? The notion that the only way you can be censored, right, is like, it's not as black and white as it used to be. Big tech has the ability to create censorship by blocking the flow of information to who can see something, what can be seen, what goes on your feed. I mean, it's what's the documentary? The Social Dilemma. Watch The Social Dilemma. You see these guys, these big tech guys coming out of Facebook, Twitter, whatever, all who were big, a guy who designed the like button, talking about how the power it has to manipulate how we see things. And we only see, it reinforces, it shows you what you already believe. So maybe it's called maybe it's a new word's needed. It's not blatant censorship. Sometimes it is. It's not literally the New York Post can't run their story. But the main way people will see that story is going to be blocked, and no one will know. That's why like 36% of people who voted for Biden never even knew that story existed. It will be blocked from most people seeing it. Your feed will show you and reinforce. Part of why we're so divided right now is social media. The feed shows you what you want to see. You see more of what you already think and agree with. It keeps you hooked on the drug of social media. And it works on both sides, and it polarizes us more and more and more and more and more. So there's a form of anti-censorship. I got to come up with a new word, but it's a way in which we are censoring. It's far more sophisticated, just like the Russian hack. They're not literally going in and just like jamming up a bunch of systems. They set something in through the system that creeps out and slowly allows them to snoop around and draw down and take information. It's an espionage thing. The way technology's allowed us to move and manipulate media is really powerful, potentially awesome, in some ways is awesome, and frightening. And it allows for a form of censorship that's not the traditional, you can't say it. So right, Tyler, no one's literally at the moment saying, Rob, you can't say that, other than, yes, I get my Reddit stream pulled down. And I think, Tyler, you were the one who said, so boohoo, you got Reddit pulled down. I've had my stuff throttled in other ways, but it's not just me. I think Rose McGowan was a great example. The minute she tweeted she was going to comment on Biden about the sexual, allegation stuff from Tara Reid, which got buried. So bearing news is another form of the anti-censorship. It's not literally censoring. It's just, we're not going to show it to you. It's a form of it, of steering information away from people. The minute she said that, all her stuff got, the number of people who saw her stuff just dropped like 80%. Am I supposed to believe Rose McGowan, who was getting 10,000 likes on a tweet, suddenly all her tweets get 300? What, everyone just stopped liking Rose McGowan overnight? And people who were users, followers, were like, we're not seeing your stuff. It's happened to so many people. So they do throttle. And as I get bigger, I'll get throttled. So great question, Cruzen. Technically, yes. And I've said this before. Technically, Facebook, IG, Twitter, etc., all have the right to censor what's on their platform because they are private companies. And this is the dilemma. And it's the dilemma we got into with railroads. It's the dilemma we got into with telecom companies that took over infrastructure, because big tech and Twitter, Facebook, they're an infrastructure now. That's infrastructure. It's not literally physical infrastructure like railroads, right? But it's a form of infrastructure. It's not, telecommunications was sort of half and half physical. And this kind of technology and this kind of infrastructure is almost all non-physical, except for our devices and the servers. Technically, they have a right to censor us because they're private. Same way you can kick someone out of your restaurant. Same way you can refuse to serve someone.
Rob, but they're no longer private anymore.
That comes
they're no longer private when it's an IPO.
Yeah, hold on. Wait, Crafty. I agree with you. I'll get in that second. I'll have you come up. So yes, you have a right to censor. But at what point is that become something that a public company has to be regulated? And that would be the issue. Railroads controlled all travel to the expansion across the country. They formed a monopoly around it. Airlines, the same thing was happening. Telecommunications. When you control that much infrastructure, there's a public responsibility to make sure it's not abused in a certain way. And I'd argue right now it's being abused. And it's opening the door for a massive form of censorship. What were you saying, Crafty?
Technically, if you're going to censor something, you can do that when you're no longer a public platform or a publicly traded company, and also based on the type of publication. If you're not going to be censoring, this is the issue that we've talked about in the past regarding publications, whether they're public forums or they're going to be opinion-based platforms. You and I have talked about that. Do you put censorship in place if you're a public forum?
Well, right, and I think that's an interesting way to look at it. So what Crafty's saying, right, is that it's, because you're a public forum, do you have a certain obligation to not censor as a result. And I would argue, yes, you do. As a private company, you technically have the right, but we bought into this system and we all started relying on it. And that's what happened with phones and telecommunications in the old days when you had landlines. It's what happened with railroads. Like when you all buy into something and it's that massively powerful and it connects that many people and it's that many people's main source of information, you now have an obligation not to censor. And I would argue the only point at which that censorship should be allowed is when it is radically and immediately dangerous to individuals. In other words, you can argue you can't post, go out and shoot all black people. Go out and shoot all Republicans. Go out and burn down everybody's houses. The one area where we've argued acts of threats of immediate harm and violence. And some people would even argue that should be allowed. I get that everything has a limit. Free speech always has a limit. I'm just arguing we're way too far on the other side. And if you're on the left, you should be wanting this lack of censorship, even if it means allowing stupid, idiotic ideas to get said. And Tyler, when you say you are allowed to, I'm arguing I'm not. I am right here, right now, until someone decides to censor me, or until someone decides to block my feed, or until someone decides to limit who gets it. And I'm one small piece of it. When you're seeing it on a much, much larger scale, what I'm talking about is an insidious and potentially massively dangerous form of controlling information. Yes, 343 Politics. We will restream it. And the stream, Crafty, right? Well, first of all, it's there for everyone to see after we're done, right? But we can, I don't know, by restreaming it, would we stream it again? Would we show it again?
Right. Well, he doesn't know that we're also streaming to multiple platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So after the show, or if he has to leave, he can head to any of those platforms and, look for you at Rob Nelson Live, like on the TV behind you.
Guys, I love all your feedback. I really do. I want to get a comment here. I saw, sorry, Tyler, you said, hold on. Let me see if I got that. I'd wager we're in the golden age of uncensored conspiracy theories compared to 20 years ago. Think about it. I disagree. I would argue we are in an age of censored conspiracy theories. They couldn't censor conspiracy theories as much in the old days because they couldn't control all the information. But I've said before, when people after Roswell, whatever happened at Roswell, guys, think about it. Something weird happened at Roswell. I mean, something happened. Area 51, they've still never really explained what happened. First, it was like a military guy came out and said they said it wasn't an unidentified flying object, then said he was replaced, and they said it was a weather balloon, and they've never told us. How come like 70 years later, whatever it is later, they can't tell us what it is? Whatever technology they were developing back then, we've been using it for 30 years. Like something weird happened that they still haven't told us, still sealed it off. But more importantly, right after that is when the Department of Defense issued secretive guidelines to all military, positions of power and to the to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and to, it was sort of spread out among the government. If somebody says they've seen a UFO, discredit them. Make them out to be crazy. Go to the press, discredit them. They only did that because they didn't want people saying it. If they really thought there was nothing to worry about, they'd be like, go ahead and say whatever you want. But they made an active attempt to discredit people who would have wacky conspiracy theories like there were aliens or there were UFOs. Now, aliens, I don't know. But if there's UFOs, there's aliens, right? And who God made us think we're the only friggin' life in the entire universe when the universe is beyond, when our own solar system is beyond comprehension and we're just one solar. I mean, come on. But no, we're the only life. And anyone who says otherwise is crazy. Well, no, we know that's not true. We know that the military is increasingly and has been for years seeing things that they do not think are human technology and they can't explain. Not coming from anywhere on this planet. But you were crazy to say it. Galileo, guys, let me end it with Galileo. So we're not in the age of uncensored conspiracy theories. We're in the age of a lot of conspiracy theories, but I think they're being censored. And anything someone says that doesn't fit a certain narrative is being considered a conspiracy theory. My only worry to my friends left of center is it will come around again and get you just like it did in the 50s. They censored the left in the 50s. They just didn't have as much power. They used other tools. Certainly McCarthyism was devastating to a small group, but they found ways to shut people down. But now it's much more widespread, and it does appear to be on one side of the equation. Galileo, the astronomer, right? Galileo said the earth wasn't flat. Well, he said the earth moved. right? And he said a lot of things, but one was that the earth was moving, right? and the earth couldn't be moving according to the Pope and according to Catholic canon. The earth was the center of the universe. We weren't revolving around anything, right? He was considered a heretic. And they argued that he was going against the science. That's what they argued, that he was going against science and the Bible. And those were very close. So I get scared when people say the science, because again, I don't want anybody saying one thing is the science. 50 years ago, we thought a whole lot different things about science as we did 30 years ago. You know, in quantum physics theory, it is most probable there are parallel universes. That's not me being wacky. It is statistically likely in quantum physics that there are parallel universes, perhaps multiple ones. And I've said this example before, you know, Albert Einstein, relativity theory. Time is not fixed. That was pretty radical. Time's not fixed. Because relativity theory, time is actually not a fixed quotient. We think of time as fixed. It's not. Einstein proved time could move forward, back. You could go ahead of time, behind time. That's pretty radical. Yet it wasn't as radical as quantum physics theory and what Niels Bohr was arguing, which would lead to the notion of multiple universes and all kinds of improbabilities and all kinds of statistical possibilities of things that are likely, sort of tearing down the traditional notion of the universe. Go back to Galileo. Wow, that was really simplistic. He was just arguing the earth is orbiting the sun. They were like, nope. And they literally censored him. You know, they did what's it called? The Inquisition did the thing where you're like zapped. They didn't kill him, but they, he was like given the Inquisition, got him, and they did the whole thing on him. But my point is, like, science changes. And Niels Bohr, when he was pushing the quantum physics theories, which we now know are true, as is relativity, they weren't incompatible. You know, Einstein famously said, you know, God doesn't play dice with the universe, because quantum physics is like a dice-like theory about how the universe forms and evolves and operates. And Niels Bohr said, stop telling God what to do. And my point in that is, Niels Bohr wasn't like, there's no God. I don't know if he thought there was or wasn't. But the point was, you know, your view of the world and your view of what science and what is true may or may not be the whole picture. We don't always know. So, you know, you have to look at multiple things. And that's why the science should allow debate of all pieces and all sides. So we ultimately will find out what the full true story is. Hi, White Horned Owl. All right, you guys, this has been a blast. We're at the edge of our time limit. I appreciate, last point on this, Tyler. It is a revenue model. Watch The Social Dilemma. They want to maximize time on the platform, but in doing that, they need you to stay on. And the algorithms work very, very well designed to show you what you want to see, to keep you there. Show you people who agree with you, show you things that you like, keep you in the space. And that's why we're dividing more and more, and why we have literally half a country that thinks one thing and half a country that thinks another. It should be impossible. It should be impossible that COVID is red and blue. But because people's views are constantly being reinforced and social media platforms reinforce them, you can have two totally alternate views of things and think they're true, which is why we need to let all the views out there. There is a scientific method, Tyler, but there is a criteria. But take my larger point. A scientific method doesn't mean, when people say the science, I'm sorry, they're not using their scientific method half the time, because they dismiss anything that doesn't fit within their outcome, not their method. Outdoor dining has a 3.8% infection rate. That's a scientific fact. Every single closed case study of people who are locked in spaces, cruise ships, prisons, whatever, found that 50% of people at least were asymptomatic. Science shows that the statistical numbers of those who die of COVID, almost everybody is over 75. The older you get, the bigger percentage it is. It's almost zero with kids, statistically insignificant. 80% of the population will be fine, and 50% before that 80% won't even know they have it, and 80% of the remaining. That's also science, Tyler. That's using the scientific model. And when we tell certain scientists who don't agree with that your science is wrong, you can have that debate. But you can't say you're not a scientist or you're not using science just because you don't agree with my outcome. And that's my point about Galileo. The Catholic Church was like, science is what we say science is. Galileo was like, well, no, science is what my scientific method has discovered, and it's not what you think. Einstein, same thing, said to Niels Bohr, no, it's not my outcome. Niels Bohr was like, stop making your outcome what science is. Science is what we're both discovering and doing. That's my last thought on that one. All right, you guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for interacting. Love the show. Hello, Gaming from Reddit. Thank you, Monkey Arms. Thank you, Crafty, for giving me some of the props as long as the shade. I should do a podcast with Ben Shapiro. You know what? I will eat outdoors. We're all hungry. We're hangry. I'm not angry at all, guys, by the way. I'm having fun. I love getting into this. This, for me, is how we move it forward. This is not censoring. This is having a dialogue. I like your views. I like the views on the right, the views on the left, the people who are in the middle. The whole point to me is have the conversation. Let's have the conversation. Keep having it, And at the end of the day, let's not have the conversation. Let's not tell people you can't say something I don't agree with. Let's, going back to the original point, yes, I think we should put the information out there and let the vast majority of people, dumb or not, make their own decisions. That's the libertarian in me. I'm Rob Nelson. Thanks for watching.